4D Leprechaun with a Pot of Gold acrylic nail art tutorial by Hotpinkzebrapolish.
Hi everyone, in today's video I'm going to be showing you a leprechaun little nail art tutorial for St. Patrick's Day. And so this one is a 4D leprechaun who pops out of a pot of gold. I've been doing a lot of nails like this recently where there's an element that has a piece that's on a piece of wire that you can kind of expose or hide in the nail, and I'm really loving it. I'm definitely planning on a couple more of these. There's so many. As soon as I kind of came up with the concept for it, I started thinking of all these different ways I could use it in so many other videos and so many other designs. So I'm getting a little bit excited about this one and, you know, this technique, and I've been using it a lot. So I hope you guys like this technique as much as I do. It's something, you know, when you come up with something new, it's fun to kind of experience all the different ways it can be used. So for this one, it's a very simple little pot of gold, which in my brain I keep calling a cauldron because I'm a Halloween person, but it's a pot of gold and it's got a rainbow, and then there's a little leprechaun that pops out of it. So I hope you guys like this, and don't forget to click subscribe to see all my future videos as well.
So to begin with, I started with an overlay of a sky blue acrylic. There really isn't too much of this blue that actually shows up in the end of it. If you wanted to, you could just paint it with some gel polish. A lot of times I do like to do an overlay with a color acrylic and then use clear acrylic on top of it. I think it adds more depth to the design, but with this one specifically, I don't really think it makes much of a difference, just because so much of the background of the nail is completely covered up that really, you can't really tell that depth anyways. But you can go ahead and do it this way too if you'd like. So then, in case your nail with a layer of clear acrylic, this is an important step even though you can't tell the depth, because it is going to be adding the strength to the nail, which definitely makes a big difference and is very, very important. You want your nail to be strong and not going to just break for you. So now I'm going to be filing my nail into shape, and I started out with a pretty coarse bit that's a nice cone shape that I like to use because it removes a lot of product really quickly. So carefully using it, it works out really well for me. And then I'm going to take a much finer bit just to refine the surface texture. So now I've got a painting brush that has a really nice rounded end, and I'm going to be wrapping that very tightly with some plastic wrap, and then with gray acrylic I'm going to be sculpting my little pot of gold, actually it's just the pot at this point, around the end of it. So when I'm doing this, you really want to make sure that you're sort of, I don't know, you have to really hold the plastic wrap really tightly and kind of carefully sculpt it around here. And a lot of times in past videos using this technique, I've tried to leave a hole at the bottom of my whatever it is that's going to be holding the hidden item, and I decided I would add that with my e-file later. So after your little pot of gold or pot is done, is set, you can take that off that little brush, and then you can glue it onto the nail just using nail glue, and then take some more of the gray acrylic and fill in any of the gaps around it. So the reason that I used the gray acrylic instead of using a black acrylic for the pot is because I can add a lot more depth with black paint, and it's very easy to sort of wash over it with just a black paint, but it takes a little bit more blending to get white paint to highlight over black, or gray paint to highlight over black. So I think it was just easier for me to add the shadows with black instead of trying to add highlights with a lighter color to make the pot look a little bit more dimensional once I go ahead and I start painting it in a little bit. The other thing you want to do with your gray acrylic is you want to add a little bit of a lip or a brim around the top of the pot. So just take a thick or a relatively stiff bead of acrylic, set that right at the top, and then just sort of pull it around the very edge of it just to create that nice little lip and give it a little bit more shape, just like that. So now you're going to want to take some gold acrylic, a metallic gold, and you're going to want to add a little bit of gold right around that brim that you just created. So I just took really tiny beads and I'm kind of stacking them up along the edge. When you're doing this, don't worry about making sure that your gold gets really tall or that it looks like it's really full, because you are going to be adding more gold behind it later on that's actually painted on the nail. So now, like I mentioned, I'm taking some diluted black paint and I'm going to be washing over my pot with just this very, very mildly black. So it's just going to kind of very easily wash over the top of it, and you'll get a really nice shaded effect on your pot without doing really all of that much work. So just take a little bit of black paint in your brush, dip it in some water, and then blend it on. Essentially is what I did. And then you're going to want to paint your rainbow that goes just kind of from the side of the nail curving into the pot of gold. So I started out, and I didn't do the full red, orange, yellow, green, blue. I just went with red, yellow, blue. You could do this however you like. You could do, you know, you could make it a little bit more faded and less precise if you wanted, make it look a little bit more real by using some diluted colors and kind of watercoloring and doing it that way. I wanted it to just look kind of fun and goofy, so that's what I did with just the red, yellow, and blue. And then with gold paint that's a metallic gold, very similar to the acrylic that you used on the edge of the pot, go ahead and add just a little bit of like a pile of gold appearance right at the bottom of your rainbow, I can think of the word all of a sudden, add an outline just around the gold, and then apply gel sealer over the background and over the gold that's on the pot, and then matte top coat over your pot. After that is done, then you can just create that little hole like I mentioned in the very bottom of your pot for the wire to go through eventually once we get done with our little leprechaun. So now to sculpt the leprechaun, I'm going to begin on a nail form backing, and I did all of his sculpting on a nail form backing. But I started with a cover pink for his head, so I added a nice little circle for his head, and then 2 teeny tiny little beads of that same cover pink for his ears. And then with some green, I'm just going to add the very top of his shirt or his jacket. There really isn't much of that showing, but I did need just a little bit in case it did show. And then you're also going to be needing to add his hat with the same color green. So just keep kind of working on that. His shoulders, I didn't do hardly any detail on, but for his hat, you do want to start with a little bit more of a trapezoid, so it's a little bit wider above his head, and then it kind of narrows down towards his head, and then add the brim of his hat with a little bit more of that green acrylic. There's really basic sculpting only for this little leprechaun. You can go as in depth as you like and add more facial features and go ahead and do however much you like. I kept him pretty small. I want him to just be kind of funny and tiny, sticking up out of the pot of gold. So I made sure he stayed really, really small. And then with bronze acrylic, I'm going to be adding his beard. So instead of using, say, orange acrylic, I decided I wanted to keep it kind of in that metallic family, kind of make it go with the gold. But instead of using gold, I used bronze, and I really like the way that that turned out. And then glue your piece of wire to the back of your leprechaun once it is set. And then after that is done, you can go ahead and flip him over and paint all of the little details on the front of him. So I started out with just a couple little outlines with black, just kind of to make him stand out a little bit more. There's so much going on with this nail with the background with the gold and the rainbow, and there's just visually there's a lot happening that adding a couple little outlines is really going to make your leprechaun stand out once he is visible. So add just little details, little outlines going around. Keep his face fairly simple. Like I said, he is really, really small. So any time spent on little details is going to be obsolete because you're not going to really be able to see them unless you have a magnifying glass. So just keep it basic: eyes, nose, mouth, eyebrows if you like, but don't worry about going too crazy with it. And then after you're done with him, I also added a gold buckle on the top of his hat. Just go ahead and apply matte top coat. String him through your nail, through that through the pot of gold. Trim off the extra wire. Glue a gold bead to the end of the wire. I'd go with either gold or like a silver or black. And then you are all done. I think this little guy is adorable. This is probably my favorite St. Patrick's nail that I've ever done. I actually haven't done all of that many, so I guess that's not saying much, but I really like this one. Please share any recreations with me on Facebook or Instagram. I would love to see them, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!